Joining me is Ian Henschke, Chief Advocate of National Seniors Australia. Ian, thank you so much for coming on the show again. 2/3 of the staff of this home were not vaccinated. Some children of the residents at this home are naturally angry about this. Is that fair enough?
Look, I think so. I think what we need to learn from is what happened overseas. Now, Italy mandated that all aged care workers, all healthcare workers had to be vaccinated, and they did that back in April. So Italy, which had, at the very beginning of the COVID pandemic, some of the most horrific figures, we saw that, you might remember, right back in the beginning, that happened there. Well, Italy's done it. We were saying to the government and saying to the Health Minister, Greg Hunt, and I think Greg Hunt has done a very good job in actually bringing this about, because, let's face it, the aged care workers all get vaccinated for the flu. There was never a problem with that. So, but one of the problems was that the Chief Health Officer at one point said that he thought that we would see people not working in aged care if they were told they had to get vaccinated. But look, let's look at some of the things overseas, Andrew, just for a moment. In Britain, for example, 90% of the people over 60, I think it's actually 95% of the people over 60 have been vaccinated. So where there have been deaths, where there have been massive numbers of deaths, vaccination has had no problems being mandatory. In Italy, I think 1 in 10,000 people refused to get the vaccine. So Australia's in a very odd spot here.
Yes, it is. I mean, we're a victim of our own success, aren't we, Ian? Because so many people say, well, there's not much virus out there. The risk of me getting sick from the vaccine itself is probably even higher. So I'm not having it. So now we're trapped. It's like a catch-22. But we've now got this rule, as you say, by September, everyone in aged care should have it, or there's no jab, no job. But are you worried that forcing staff to get vaccinated means that some will simply stop working because there's been so much fear-mongering about the vaccines that we might actually get staff shortages?
It's possible, but I would ask yourself, if those staff are already getting the flu vaccine and that's mandatory, I think it's a job of communication. I think you just have to sit down with people and explain to them that this is a life and death situation. I cannot imagine what it would be like if you were an aged care worker and you took the virus into an aged care home and people died as a result of your choice not to be vaccinated. Now, that is the alternative. So I think we have to think very carefully about communicating to the aged care staff and explaining to them. Now, I mean, even in our own family, my own family, for example, I've had one AstraZeneca shot. My wife has had an AstraZeneca shot. Now she's worried about the AstraZeneca and she wants to get the Pfizer.
Look, there's been so much scaremongering. Anyway, look, I'm sorry we seem to have lost the end. There's been so much reckless, irresponsible scaremongering, particularly from the Queensland Premier, and I think that's really cost us a lot. Ian, you're back. One last question. About 30% of the people aged over 70, the people most likely by far to be killed by this virus, have not got themselves vaccinated. I mean, the option was there. They, for one reason or another, maybe fear, whatever, have not taken that option. I just wonder, what's our future then? Is it on them if we now open up and they get sick and possibly die, or should we stay shut until they finally come around to taking the vaccine?
Look, I think, Andrew, we've got to recognise, as you said before, that we are living in somewhat of a paradise here, maybe a fool's paradise, because we're fooling ourselves if we think we won't see the sort of death rates that we saw in Europe and we've seen in the Philippines, we've seen in Brazil, we've seen in America, we've seen in the United Kingdom. So we're sitting here discussing whether or not I should have Pfizer, or AstraZeneca, whether or not the workers should be vaccinated or not vaccinated. I mean, you can do all that while you've got your borders shut and you've got the disease under control. But I will tell you what I heard last week from a person who'd worked in aged care for 40 years and a geriatrician. Both of them said getting vaccinated is a no-brainer. Now, in other words, there is only one choice. get vaccinated. And if you don't get vaccinated and you die, that's your choice.
I couldn't agree more, and I've been told that was a heartless point of view to put last year, but I'll put it again. You're absolutely right. We need to build in some sort of responsibility in people here, and we can't all hide under the doona because someone down the road is too scared to take the vaccine. That's their choice. Ian Henschke, always a pleasure to hear good sense from you. Thank you so much for your time.